Okay, so you send a bunch of stuff on Google and AI,
Yeah.
articles and blog posts, even a timeline. Seems like you're really trying to get a handle on this whole thing.
Yeah,
Not just interested in the headlines.
yeah.
You want to understand how Google actually does AI.
Yeah,
It's like
exactly.
the chips, the infrastructure, how their approach is developed over time.
Absolutely. And of course, BigQuery keeps popping up,
Yeah.
that massive data warehouse.
Yeah, Google's known for.
So there's definitely a connection there between all those pieces.
Okay, so our deep dive today is all about connecting the dots for you.
Okay.
What makes Google's AI strategy unique? How does BigQuery fit in? What are the aha moments that'll make you say, now I get it?
Right.
And this timeline you included is a great place to start, I think.
Yeah.
It highlights some major milestones in Google's AI journey,
Yeah.
going all the way back to 2001.
It's interesting to see how even back then, with something as simple as spell check, Google was already incorporating AI into their products.
It's easy to forget that.
I know, right? It feels like it's been around forever.
Yeah.
But back then, it was a pretty big deal, and it really points to a bigger trend. Google has been focused on AI from the very beginning.
Yeah.
It's part of their DNA.
And their mission statement really drives that point home, doesn't it?
Yeah?
To organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful.
Yeah.
I mean, that naturally leads to AI.
It absolutely does.
Organizing and understanding information on a massive scale,
Mm-hmm.
that's a job for artificial intelligence.
For sure. Think about it. To truly organize and understand information, you need to be able to process it, learn from it, extract meaning from it.
Yeah,
That's where AI comes in.
that's the key.
It's the key to making information truly accessible and useful.
It reminds me of when Google Translate launched
Oh, yeah.
back in 2006.
Oh.
Felt like science fiction at the time.
It really did.
And now it supports over 133 languages.
It's crazy.
It's a great example of how Google used AI to break down language barriers.
It is. And what's even more remarkable is that Google was dealing with the challenges of big data.
Right.
Volume, velocity,
Yeah.
variability, and veracity.
All the V's.
All the V's, long before the term big data was even really a thing.
Yeah.
Think about how much data Google Search was processing even back then.
I know. It's mind-blowing.
They were pioneers in handling information at scale.
It's like they were preparing for the AI revolution all along.
Yeah.
They saw the potential of data early on,
Mm-mm.
and they built the infrastructure to support it.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't just about storing data.
Right.
It was about understanding it and learning from it.
Exactly. And that's where Google's commitment to open source really comes into play.
Okay, yeah, let's talk about that.
They've released some incredibly powerful tools like Kubernetes TensorFlow
Yeah.
and BERT.
I've always been curious about this. Why would they give away such valuable tools?
Yeah.
Wouldn't they want to keep them as a competitive advantage?
You would think so, right?
Yeah.
But Google understood that fostering a vibrant AI community would ultimately benefit them.
Okay.
Take TensorFlow, for example. By open sourcing it, they essentially made it the industry standard for deep learning.
Ah, so they've shaped the landscape by contributing to it.
Precisely.
Mhm.
It's a brilliant strategy.
Mhm.
It attracts talent, accelerates innovation, and creates a huge ecosystem around their tools.
Right.
Plus, by making those tools available, they benefit from the collective knowledge and improvements contributed by this massive community of developers.
So it's about collaboration rather than competition in a way.
It is.
It's a different approach, for sure.
It is, and it's been incredibly successful.
So we talked about how Google's been focused on AI from day one.
Right.
They've been laying the groundwork for years, even before the current AI boom.
Yeah.
And they've played a key role in shaping the open source landscape.
Mm-hmm.
But what about the hardware?
Yeah, the hardware.
How do they handle these incredible amounts of data required for training these powerful AI models?
That's where it gets really interesting. They had to build their own hardware.
I remember reading about that.
Yeah.
Wasn't there a story about how Google almost doubled its data centers
Mhm.
just to support a new speech recognition feature?
That's the one.
Wow.
It became clear that traditional CPUs just weren't efficient enough for the massive matrix and vector computations that
Mhm.
AI relies on.
Mm-hmm.
Google needed a different approach.
Which is what led them to develop TPUs,
Exactly.
answer processing units, their own custom chips built for AI.
Exactly. Unlike CPUs, which are designed for general-purpose computing, TPUs are optimized for the specific demands of AI and machine learning.
So it's all about speed and efficiency.
Absolutely.
And these TPUs have evolved over time, haven't they?
They have. The first version, TPU v1, was all about running AI models, what we call inference,
Right.
taking a trained model and using it to make predictions.
Right.
But then they realized they needed a more efficient way to train those models in the first place, which led to TPU v2, essentially a supercomputer designed specifically for AI training. And later versions introduced things like liquid cooling and optical connections
Oh, wow.
for even faster data handling.
So we've got the software,
Yeah.
the open source contributions,
Mm-hmm.
and now the custom built hardware.
Mm-hmm.
It's like Google created its own ecosystem, perfectly tuned for AI.
It really is.
But there's still a missing piece, isn't there?
Yeah, what's that?
How do they manage and store all this data
Yeah.
in a way that makes it easy to access and use for AI applications?
That's where BigQuery comes in.
All right, BigQuery.
And that's what we'll delve into next.
All right, BigQuery. It's described as a serverless, highly scalable data warehouse.
Right.
But what does that actually mean for someone who wants to use it? What makes it so special?
Well, let's start with serverless.
Okay.
It means you don't have to worry about setting up or managing any servers.
Okay.
BigQuery handles all of that behind the scenes. You can just focus on your data and the questions you want to answer.
That sounds pretty convenient, especially if you're not a tech expert.
It is. It's a huge advantage for businesses that want to get insights from their data without having to build and maintain a complex infrastructure.
And then there's highly scalable. Does that mean it can handle basically any amount of data I throw at it?
Pretty much. We're talking about petabytes, even exabytes of data, and it does so seamlessly. BigQuery automatically scales up or down based on your needs. You only pay for what you use.
So if my data set suddenly grows 10 times larger, I don't have to panic and scramble to upgrade my systems. BigQuery just handles it.
Exactly. It's designed to handle those kinds of fluctuations without missing a beat. That's a game changer for organizations dealing with rapidly growing data sets.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But BigQuery's power isn't just about being serverless and scalable, right? What are some of those unique features you mentioned earlier that make it so efficient for analytics?
One key feature is columnar storage. Traditional databases store data in rows, but BigQuery stores it in columns.
Okay.
This might sound like a minor detail, but it has huge implications for performance.
I'm curious how...
Think about it this way. If you're analyzing sales data, and you only need to look at specific columns like product ID and revenue with columnar storage, BigQuery only accesses those specific columns. It doesn't have to load the entire data set.
So it's like reading a book by picking out the sentences that are relevant to you instead of reading the whole thing. Makes sense.
Exactly. It makes queries incredibly fast and cost-effective. You're not wasting time and processing power on data you don't need.
And you also mentioned that BigQuery separates compute and storage.
Right, that's another key innovation. You can scale each independently, giving you even more control over your costs and performance.
So I could have massive amounts of data stored in BigQuery, but only pay for the compute resources when I'm actually analyzing that data.
Precisely. It's a very flexible and efficient model.
Okay, so far so good.
Mhm.
But we haven't even talked about the engine that powers BigQuery, have we? The Dremel query engine. What's so
Yeah.
special about it?
Dremel is really the heart of BigQuery. It's what allows it to handle massive queries so quickly. It uses a technique called massively parallel processing. Imagine taking a complex query and breaking it down into hundreds or even thousands of smaller tasks that can be executed simultaneously across a huge cluster of servers.
So instead of running the query on a single machine, it's happening in parallel across a whole network of machines. That's how it achieves those lightning-fast speeds, even on huge data sets.
Exactly. It's a very elegant solution.
But isn't BigQuery only for data scientists and engineers, people who know how to write complex queries?
Not at all. One of the goals of BigQuery was to make data accessible to everyone regardless of their technical skills, and they've done a great job of that.
That's so.
Well, remember Gemini, the AI model we talked about earlier?
The one powering Google Translate.
That's right. Well, Gemini is also integrated into BigQuery, enabling natural language queries.
Wait, so I can ask BigQuery a question in plain English, like, what were our top-selling products last month? And it will understand what I'm asking.
Exactly. Gemini translates your natural language into a structured query that BigQuery can understand and execute. No need to learn SQL or any other query language.
So it's like having a data analyst built right into BigQuery. I like it. So we've got this incredibly powerful data warehouse that can handle massive data sets, execute queries at lightning speed, and is easy enough for anyone to use. But how does BigQuery actually fit into Google's broader AI ecosystem? We've been talking about all these separate pieces. How do they work together?
That's the key question, isn't it? And it's all about connecting those pieces in a way that makes sense. Remember Dataflow, the data processing service we discussed
The
earlier?
one that handles data ingestion and transformation.
Right. So Dataflow plays a crucial role in getting data ready for AI and machine learning.
Right.
It's like a pipeline that takes raw data, cleans it up, transforms it, and prepares it for analysis.
And where does BigQuery fit into that pipeline?
BigQuery is the destination. Once Dataflow has prepared the data, it's stored in BigQuery ready to be analyzed. And here's where it gets really interesting. You can actually build and run machine learning models directly within BigQuery using BigQuery ML.
So I can do machine learning without having to move my data out of BigQuery?
Absolutely. It streamlines the entire process. No need to transfer massive data sets back and forth between different systems.
That sounds incredibly efficient.
It is. It eliminates a lot of complexity and potential points of failure.
But what about more complex machine learning models? The kind you might build using something like Vertex AI.
Another excellent point, BigQuery seamlessly integrates with Vertex AI as well. You can train your models in Vertex AI, deploy them, and then use them within BigQuery to generate real-time predictions on your data.
So let's say I have a model in Vertex AI that predicts customer churn. I can use that model within BigQuery to analyze my customer data and identify those who are at high risk of leaving.
Exactly. It's about connecting the dots. BigQuery's strength is managing and querying data, while Vertex AI excels at building and deploying sophisticated machine learning models. By combining them, you get the best of both worlds.
So I've got Dataflow handling data ingestion and processing BigQuery storing and managing the data, BigQuery ML for building basic machine learning models, and then Vertex AI for more advanced models. It's all starting to come together now.
And it's all built on Google's global infrastructure and powered by those custom-designed TPUs we talked about earlier. They've really thought of everything.
They really have. When you lay it all out like that, it's quite impressive. It's clear that Google isn't just dipping its toes into AI. They're all in. They've built this robust end-to-end ecosystem for AI.
You're absolutely right. And we haven't even touched on all the other AI services Google Cloud offers. We focused on BigQuery, but it's just one part of a much larger offering.
So what else is included in Google Cloud's AI stack? What else should our listener know about?
Well, we've talked about Vertex AI for building and deploying ML models and Dataflow for data processing, but there are also powerful tools for natural language processing, computer vision, speech recognition, even robotics. They have APIs and services for just about every AI application you can imagine.
Wow, that's a lot to take in. It sounds like they have everything you could possibly need to build AI-powered solutions.
We're definitely aiming for a comprehensive suite of tools and services, and they're constantly adding new features and capabilities. It's an exciting time to be working in AI, and Google is right at the forefront.
So what does all of this mean for our listener? What are the key takeaways from all of this?
I think the biggest takeaway is that Google is incredibly serious about AI. They're not just chasing headlines. They've made a long-term commitment, and they've invested heavily in building a truly remarkable AI ecosystem. And they've done it in a way that makes AI accessible and useful for a wide range of businesses and organizations.
And they're not done yet. This isn't the end of the story.
Not by a long shot.
Hmm.
The field of AI is constantly evolving, and Google is one of the key drivers of that evolution.
Yeah, it really is a lot to keep up with.
Yeah.
But it is exciting to see how AI is evolving, and it sounds like Google is playing a big role in shaping that future. We covered so much today.
Yeah.
Don't talk about Google's long history with AI.
Yeah, their commitment to open source and how that shaped the landscape, their innovative hardware, the TPUs designed just for AI workloads, and then, of course, BigQuery, that massive serverless data warehouse. It seems like it's at the heart of Google's AI strategy.
It's been really interesting to see how it all fits together.
Mm-hmm.
Dataflow preparing the data, BigQuery storing and managing it, BigQuery ML for building those models within the data warehouse,
Mm-hmm.
and then integration with Vertex AI for those more advanced machine learning tasks.
It's a complete ecosystem, and you can tell that they've put a lot of thought into how these pieces work together. They're not just experimenting. They have a vision for AI, and they're going for it in a really impressive way.
So what does this all mean for someone trying to understand Google's AI efforts? What are the key takeaways? What should they be paying attention to?
I think the biggest takeaway is that Google is serious about AI. This isn't just a trend for them. They've made it a core part of their business, and they're doing it strategically. They're investing in research and development. They're building that world-class infrastructure, and they're making AI accessible to everyone through these tools like BigQuery ML and natural language querying.
So they're not just building AI for themselves, they're building it for everyone.
Exactly. They see it as a technology that could change the world, and they want to be leading the way. They want to provide the platform and the tools so other people can do amazing things with AI.
And for our listener who obviously wants to understand how Google does AI, what advice would you give them? Where should they go from here?
I'd say the best thing is to keep learning. Google's AI is vast, and it's always changing. There's always something new to discover. Don't be afraid to dive into the documentation, try out the tools, see what you can build. And remember, the open source community, that's a huge resource.
It's like Google is saying, here are the tools. Now go change the world.
That's a great way to put it. They're giving us the building blocks, and they want to see what we create with them.
I think this deep dive has given our listeners a solid foundation. We've explored Google's history with AI, their commitment to open source, the amazing hardware they've developed, and the power of BigQuery. But it's really just the beginning. The world of AI is always evolving, and Google is right there at the forefront.
It's a very exciting time to be involved with AI, and it's only going to get more exciting. Who knows what the next breakthrough will be or what new technologies are coming.
That's it for our deep dive into Google AI and BigQuery. We hope you enjoyed it, and we hope we've helped you understand a little bit more about how Google is approaching this incredible technology.
Keep exploring, keep learning, and keep building. The future of AI is out there.